Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchists Dave, and tonight we're cracking open the bestiary of the imagination. We're talking creature creation, not just how to build them, but how to build them into your world.
And I'm Nerdarchists Ted. Get ready to unleash beasts born of lore, logic, and a little lunacy. From sky krakens that feed on arcane storms to goblin pit bosses running illegal fight clubs, we're diving deep into the DNA of truly unique monsters.
If you've ever asked yourself what kind of creature would thrive in this world, then you're already on the right track. Let's get weird, let's get wild, and let's start bringing your worlds to life, one custom creature at a time.
Under the Dome is a post-apocalyptic D&D campaign where chaos magic has warped the natural order. The city of Crystalia, shielded under a magical dome, is a haven amidst sprawling wasteland like the Forest of Stone, Bog of Eternal Acid, and the Sea of Blades. Societal order teeters between elite barons and the spires, and gang-fueled survivalism below.
Under the Dome, setting is a crucible of monstrous evolution. Your creatures aren't just foes, they're byproducts of a world broken by magic. Crafting monsters for Under the Dome means creating beings that reflect environmental horror, social decay, and magical mutation. Think less orc with axe, a more sentient pit of teeth grown from an abandoned gladiator's helmet.
There is a lot that I could get into here with Under the Dome. Just the sheer amount of thinking that I have spent months pouring into this campaign world to break down the typical D&D monsters to make them unique to this setting. But we're just gonna give you a little teaser, little taste. So first up is Churn Maws, massive cast-touch predators that tunnel through black sands surrounding the dome city of Baleria. Resembling obsidian-plated purple worms, these are the world's answer to subterranean terror, feared and hunted in equal measure. Despite the danger, their flesh is a prized delicacy in Baleria's black market. Few who want them return whole, if they return at all. So I love worm creatures, and if you see things like Dune and the like, I feel like these things fully embrace that concept. The terror of the sands shifting below you when you leave the Baleria, it's dangerous. These things spring up like purple worms, but they come in a variety of sizes. There's things all the way from juvenile that are merely large all the way to full-on gargantuan-style worms. Now, and I wanted to throw these things down on the table for my players' first session that I ran of Under the Dome. So I handcrafted a handful of these things, and they're nowhere near what some of the great crafters in the RPG community can do. But for like the little bit of time I spent on them and the fact that they're just foam, paint, and toothpicks, I'm quite happy. But they've got tremor sense, so if you're walking around on the sands, they know you're there from probably a good distance away. They can do all the things that worms do. They can swallow you whole, they can dissolve you, do all that fun stuff, as well as beat the crap out of you with their teeth and their tail stinger.
Do you have to do a Tremors session? Oh, you know what? I'm going to run this. In January, we'll be at the Greater Philadelphia Gaming Expo, page 3, as special guests, and we're both going to be running a bunch of games. One of the games I'm going to run is going to be Tremors. I'm going to run Tremors, but it's going to be baby Churn Maws, right? And I totally want to run it in an area where maybe they're not normally found, or maybe someone wanders on one of the spawning grounds where maybe they drop a bunch of larvae, they move on and never think about it again. And it's just going to be an isolated patch of black sand. Maybe there's a long forgotten village there that has some stone structures that they can't burrow through. But I totally want to do the Tremors session where they're like trying to hop back and forth from these things, and maybe a little bit of a build up to like they find someone that gets murdered by one first before they find out what's actually going on. And the idea is like maybe no one's ever seen them this small before because it only happens in an isolated place. But right. Yeah, so Churn Maws are a combination of, I believe, your answer to purple worms, but different. But how are you tying them to Under the Dome? What makes them a Ulfgania specific monster in the time of Under the Dome?
They are one of the many creatures that exist outside of domes that have been shaped by chaos magic. So they don't have any real time that they spend above the surface. So they don't really have to worry about the chaos storms, because if there's a problem, they can just burrow underneath. But they are literally drawn to the area surrounding the cities because there is so much movement, be it the constructs that are walking around, the construct vehicles that we are using for this particular game, or just the massive amounts of footfall traffic that in the course of a city, you've got just so much. Creatures with tremor sense, that's like a beacon. So they pretty much lie in wait, and the town notices that and uses that. They have tips and tricks to kind of lure them out, seismic charges to draw them towards an area, distance attacks, nets. I've even got a like modified crossbow thing that is used to like literally fire into the body after it's been dropped on a crankshaft to kind of pull it out of the ground, because when you see all of these worms, so much more of the creature is underground. And then similar to the sky whales, we've only got so much space in a city that you can grow and make food. So these things become a massive food source and probably again similar to the sky whales, there's probably other components that are breaking down and used so that they're not, because resources are scarce in a post-apocalyptic setting. So I just want to make something that was it can be a hazard of just like, okay, well, similar to what you're talking about with tremors. Like when I set up my encounter, I put rocks that were stationed around to see whether the players would be like, oh, well, what if I get on a rock? Is it going to attack me? And that's what I did. Anyone that wasn't standing on a rock, I was attacking. Whoever was on a rock, they seemed to be safe, unless they were doing enough damage to cause the creature to kind of target them. You've got the tactics, you've got the hazard aspect, you've got a lore aspect of how it's useful and necessary for the cities. But then, of course, you've got a very degree of combat monster that can be used across, I don't know how many, I've got like 3 or 4 different versions of the Churn Maw. Yeah, so I've got 3. I've got juvenile, adult, and elder. And if you wanted to like straight up add in essentially newborn, that would be a whole nother thing that could be drifted down even further.
I think I would call them larvae, except they're larvae, but they're like 4 to 8 foot long and probably pretty thick as well.
Yeah.
So immediately I started thinking about Dune, right? Because you have the worms and the spice. And like, so did they use thumpers? Put the thumpers in the ground, it summons the worms?
I called it seismic charges, but I mean, it's essentially the same thing. Like if you're looking for something that is attracted to movement, something that creates that thing in the sands, that's going to draw them.
Is there any significance with the black sand?
I just wanted to create a different biome. I haven't dived too deep into whether the black sand means something different, but it definitely creates an atmosphere of it's a little bit darker because Baleria is more industrial than Crystallia. So I don't know whether it has to do with the smoke-laden city, whether it's just that's how the chaos storms have shaped the area here. I know that I've got inventions that basically operate only on black sands. I've got hover boots, basically operate like ice skates, but instead of like skating on ice, you hover over the black sands. So those sand is like charged with different energies. I haven't examined it from an alchemical standpoint yet to find out what it would be done for other cities, because outside of Baleria, there is like umpteen metric tons of this black sand. Nobody's dug down to see whether it resorts to something else below it.
So I believe earthworms, not only do they travel through the earth, but the earth travels through them. What if the black sands is actually a byproduct of Churn Maws?
That makes a lot of sense, and I love it.
They've been here for so long and so many of them. And as they breed, it kind of extend their territories outwards, like so does the black sands.
That could be a cool mystery for characters to try and solve if they were so inclined.
So next up, we'll go from one of Ted's creations to one of my own, and that is the Nibblers. Large, fuzzy chaos mutants are often underestimated for their fluffiness. However, they're fiercely territorial and possess innate grind tech savvy. Leaders like Razzle and Jaws chew on stogies and run outlaw trike gangs like the Fuzz Boys. Their dust bath hideouts and notorious bad attitudes make them the perfect reoccurring foils for urban or vehicle-based mayhem. So Nibblers are humanoid chinchillas, range like 5 to 7 foot tall. They're big. And they're huge, but most of it is fur. They're very fluffy, except for like their muzzle and like a little bit around the eyes and their hands, which are covered in scales. But the rest of them are their humanoid chinchillas. And they were inspired because I have a couple of chinchillas myself. And the reason why Nibblers have a bad attitude is because what I discovered is 1, chinchillas will chew through anything that is not made of metal or glass. 2, they're jerks. Literally, like one chinchilla would be climbing up the ladder and the other one would be on the other side trying to flip them off of it. Because they have like little hands and he would grab it from either side and literally just try to flip it to make his brother fall off. So I'm like, yeah, I think this needs to be a thing. And because chinchillas, they don't bathe like other animals, they roll in dust. I was like, well, of course we have to have bathhouses that are just made of dust for our humanoid chinchillas. And they're called Nibblers because they're always chomping on something, they're always nibbling something. They always buy and seek out rare stone and woods that are kind of shaped like cigars or stogies that they're constantly kind of chewing on like something like almost like chewing tobacco. So they always have that chewing motion going on. And it's just been something, I just wanted a different kind of race to add into the mix. That's something I haven't seen before. And also chinchillas are adorable and their fur is so soft. And I thought it would be kind of funny to take those aspects and combine it with a species that has a bit of a bad attitude. Now, we don't want to stereotype, not all of them are going to be like that. But the ones that the players have dealt with have, because they've all been outlaws and part of outlaw biker gangs and criminal organizations.
So stepping back for a moment, this is another thing that when you're creating stuff for your world, this is absolutely something that you should be doing. Like we have told countless times, take inspiration from everywhere. What is it that you are passionate about? What is it that you have knowledge about? And how can you use that? So as Dave has pet chinchillas, he's like, okay, well, through raising these creatures, I have learned 1, 2, 3 ABC facts. All right. How can I extrapolate this real world knowledge into a fantasy-driven creature. And then you take the logical steps from there of how does these aspects pertain to my world? And this is just a great way to take something that you're driven about, knowledgeable about, and make something new, make something unique. And it has been loads of fun to interact with these nibblers. And as we as players say, well, here is something new, let me bite onto it, more and more lore came out, more and more things were done because we as players chose to interact with this something new, because as veterans, we see both as a player and as a part-time GM, I was like, oh, well, Dave's created this thing. All right, either he's got lore that he wants to put out there to exposition, or we got to put him to the test and see what he's actually done, make him think on his feet. So we push those buttons and we want to cross those lines and see what else can be done. So like, it has been quite enjoyable to go down this little rabbit hole of these rare woods. And in fact, we investigated and learned what nibblers are and how they operate. And we tried to basically bury the hatchet with them of like, look, we don't need to be at odds here. How can we make amends or reparations or whatever terminology you want to use? So like we went out and purchased one of these rare special woods, what have you, and presented their leader with this at a dust bath where it's like, all right, we're having to make constitution saving throws to not die in here. So there were mechanics for how non-nibblers were dealing in and around these spaces, which again brings in layers of how this unique creation is affecting the game from a lore perspective and a mechanical perspective. All of this can extrapolate further to, well, what if I want to play one as a character? Are there stats for them? You can go down these rabbit holes to make something that is, oh, this is special. This is something that only exists in my world. And when you want to have a world that is unique, you need that. You need races that don't exist anywhere else.
Yeah, they've been a lot of fun to breathe into the world. And even one of the players keeps threatening that if his character dies, the next one he makes is going to be a nibbler. So he's like, you better have the stats ready.
Chaos warped giants. Once noble defenders of the forests of stone, these titanic beings were twisted by decades of uncontrolled flesh warping and psychic decay. Now they lurch through the petrified woods fused with tree, stone, and embedded crystal, driven by fragmented memories of protecting the ordering. Imagine a redwood-sized juggernaut haunted by its oaths, now smashing cities, trying to make them fit into their perverted memory of the giant ordering.
You guys were seeking an artifact, the Titan Orb, and on your way there, you guys were kind of assailed by visions of this war between giants and titans. And the Titan Orb was a thing that was kind of used to win the day for the giants. And from that, you felt kind of inspired and you wanted to do more with giants. You threw some ideas out there and I threw some ideas out there and we got to talking and like, well, let's not do just typical regular giants. Matter of fact, they'll exist in our world, but they're actually the mutants because all the giants have been warped and changed. And now they're kind of their own unique thing. So we have these chaos warp giants, right? And there's going to be different varieties of them. And they all are trying to follow the version of the giant ordering that they remember, right? And that's told through their histories. Except for a monkey wrench gets thrown into the works because occasionally your typical D&D giant will be born and it won't be chaos warped. And it won't resemble any of the new tribes of giants. It'll be a hill giant or a stone giant, storm giant, whatever. Even the least of these giants, the hill giant, the weakest, the stupidest, in the eyes of chaos warped giants, they sit above them in the ordering, right? They still would follow the ordering as it is. But because there's so few true giants that it doesn't matter what they are, they're just going to be like, oh, so you could encounter all these really powerful giants that are chaos warp giants, and it could be a particular tribe or many tribes, all under the rule of a hill giant, which like the weakest of the chaos warp giants could defeat them and usurp them if they wanted to. But because they followed this divine calling, the ordering of the giants, they would never even dream of doing that. The hill giant is actually in charge. In fact, maybe even an ogre would be in charge.
In the lore that I have, I've taken the concept of giants and their warping has basically turned them into far more elemental creatures than what the D&D aspect. Like we have fire giants and it's like, okay, they're a giant and they have access to like fire and what have you. You've got storm giants who wield lightning. Well, in this version, while they're still giants, they are more in touch with the element that actually exists. I've only got 2 here prepared, but pyroclastic titans, the walking volcanoes. This is a combination of fire and earth. It's still a huge creature, so it's not like it's titanic like the literal walking volcano that it says, but their core mechanic revolves around the unstable magma heart, allowing them to erupt violently when struck, so like they can literally spew forth fire and magma when they're attacked. And then the other one I've got here is one that's kind of fueled by the frost giant, but this one is the glacial tempest. It's fusion of frost and storm, rather being a simple combination. It's a fundamental force of entropy and destruction, where ice and lightning exist in a constant state of violent equilibrium. Glacial tempests function as living weather anomalies Massive beings that freeze the battlefield, blind enemies in blizzards, and strike with electrified frost. The Glacial Tempest is a CR 17. You can still get within the realm of where giants are, but these things are designed to be different, to strike out from where the giants were before. By me creating these combination things, I've stepped away from my trepidation with how giants exist in a D&D world. My own complexities with giants, and how I feel like they just don't fit in a D&D world. Whereas these guys, I've found where I can put them. I found where I'm happy with them making a home, and that is in the vast city of Titanholm, ruled by King Valar Twosold, who is literally a combination of a storm giant and a fire giant as like a two-headed Etten-style monstrosity. He's basically lived for as long as anyone in the city alive. He's a near immortal creature. He's not designed of like, oh, let's stat this guy so that we can kill him. If he is literally the culmination of these two top-tier giants, he's not meant to be fought, but somebody's going to want to try and kill him, of course. But he was fun to kind of play around with and make. I think I've even thrown up some concept art on some of the blog posts that I've done for Under the Dome.
Yeah, I just love the idea of these monstrosities, these titanic creatures taking the orders and listening to a lowly hill giant.
It would be indeed comical.
So what's the most unsettling creature you've created or faced? Something that wasn't just dangerous, but wrong in a way that stuck with your players. Bonus points if it changed how they saw the world around them. Tell us your favorite terrifying original monster in the chat.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We're killer as always. Keep those creative fires burning. And remember, whether it's a stat block or a story beat, every creature you create has a chance to make your world unforgettable.
You had fun tonight. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next one. Until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.